702. Travel.
And this travel feature is brought to you by Marriott Bonvoy. Stay longer for less, from 15% off on your next winter getaway with Marriott Bonvoy. And let's say good afternoon to Iga Motylska. Iga, I hope I have not butchered your name in any way, and I hope I've said it right, Motylska?
Yes, that was perfect, Ivaka. Such a lovely pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon once again. And of course, we know this topic, a very sensitive one at the moment and a worrying one, depending on where you're traveling. LGBTQI plus communities and individuals and where they can travel, and just the different laws coming into play, especially when we talk about Africa and sexuality and what we're hearing in the news recently. So it is the end of Pride Month today. It is the end of June, and it's been Pride Month, so it's very fitting that we end it with this discussion. Let's talk about traveling as a member of the LGBTQI plus community, because I'm sure it's a landmine for locals and international travelers in terms of laws and where you're going to be okay and safe and where you could end up in jail for being who you are.
Yes, certainly, absolutely. And so I've written a blog post on my travel blog, igajourneys.com, and I must say it is one of the most popular blog posts because people are always going there to look for up-to-date information. I always update it. There's some really great resources, links to communities and gay-friendly tour operators, so it's a really awesome resource, and listeners can go and have a look at a number of other resources from there as well. And you're absolutely right. Because very often we find that rules that apply to the locals do not necessarily always apply to international visitors. We know this because, popular tourist hubs and holiday resorts are much more gay-friendly, even if, for example, they're found in a country that has very strict laws on homosexuality.
Yeah.
A few examples would be Namibia, Mauritius, Maldives, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. So that's always just something to be aware of. And I think exercising caution is definitely the level-headed way to go.
All right. Well, you've written about, some useful tips. You've given some tips. What would you say are the 5 most essential ones for anybody from the LGBTQI plus community when they're traveling across Africa in particular? What are the 5 essential tips for them, would you say?
Yes, so I've got a whole long list of 16, but I would say my top ones before you leave is to learn about the history of the LGBTQI plus community in those countries, especially because many African countries have a very conservative outlook in terms of sexuality and gender identity, and this could be due to religious or cultural beliefs and so on. So I would suggest reading up on the laws and regulations and then having a look at government websites and travel advisories or even news articles to find out if these laws are actually being enforced. And, there are a number of other things I'd suggest, like looking at the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association. There's a link to that as well, and they offer some very useful tips and information and resources. There's also Global Gaze, which is gaze with a Z, and that is an awesome resource again, and it's all about traveling across Africa and also shares personal stories from a human rights activist perspective.
Okay.
So that's what I would recommend before you leave.
Okay, and that's talking about Africa in particular. If you were to venture out, no matter where in the world you are going, are your sort of tips the same to stay safe, or is it a little bit different if you're venturing outside of Africa?
So I would say, besides gay-friendly destinations, it's always really important to just use your discretion. And regardless of, where you're traveling, I would also maybe say, just use your discretion when discussing personal details, for example, and try to make a conscious effort to use gender-neutral language when discussing your personal life or your relationships. I wholeheartedly agree with what you said earlier. It is such a shame, it's such a pity that individuals from the community need to go to such great lengths to censor themselves and to be conscious of all of those things. But they really do go a long way. And something else I would say is just connecting with the local community on the ground through various online platforms and asking them what it's like living in their country, asking about gay-friendly accommodation options, and obviously restaurants and clubs and so on. So I think that's always a really good start. And I would also say trust your instinct. Always be mindful of public spaces, and be aware of public displays of affection. And I think just respecting local customs and traditions goes a really long way. And my final tip would be to travel with supportive allies if you can. Someone who's aware of your identity and sexual orientation, someone who's going to be there to support you, to give you a sense of safety and solidarity as well. Or even waiting outside of a restroom, for example.
Okay, and then just to wrap up for us, Iga, then the most sort of gay-friendly or LGBTQI plus friendly countries to travel to in Africa?
Yes, so I update this list regularly. The most popular ones, I would say, are Angola, Botswana. We've obviously got the Seychelles, Sao Tome and Principe. There's Rwanda on that list as well. And, of course, Reunion Island, because it's a French territory, so gay marriage is actually legal there as well. A number of others that are close by are obviously Mozambique and Lesotho, and they can find the full list on igajourneys.com, as well as some detailed overviews and obviously some gay-friendly travel providers throughout the continent.
All right, Iga, thanks very much for that, and absolutely an important conversation to have.